What's the worst relationship advice you've ever heard? Love means never having to say you're sorry. That's the dumbest 1970s movie tagline crap I've ever heard. It's the key pitch line and wisdom in the 1970s movie Love Story. A big deal at the time. Oscars and crap. I think the meaning is cut and dried. They intend it as the truth. But I hear it and think, love means constantly having to say you're sorry. Maybe they meant the words don't need to be spoken. There was instant forgiveness. Maybe you got to see the movie. It's surely Googleable, the influence. But it still makes no sense to me. You could flip it just as easy as selfish. Love means having never to say you're sorry. Unless you want to avoid sleeping on the couch. Then apologize profusely. And maybe buy some flowers. Story 2. To test how much they'd fight for me with petty remarks and ultimatums. Kind of like, you didn't say you missed me, or if you don't come by today, then I'll have to move on. I did not listen to them, and I'm glad I didn't. Story 3. Follow your heart. While having the feeling of love is important, it can be confused with infatuation. If you have family or friends that tell you the relationship is bad or isn't going to work, take that into consideration. Try to take a step back and look at the situation. On a happier note, the best advice I've gotten is love is a choice. The feeling will come and go. If you really want to have a long-term relationship, you'll have to choose to love when things are hard. Story 4. Don't go to bed angry. My wife would talk things out until 3 a.m. just so we wouldn't go to bed angry. It ended up not good because we just kept misunderstanding each other due to being so tired. She finally gets it is okay to go to bed angry, and then discuss the next day when we have had time to sleep on it or not be so angry in the moment. Saved me hours of sleep in the long term. Story 5. Men are scared of women who have a higher salary and education than him. If you want a husband, make sure you earn less and don't go to school. Some random relative who wanted to give me his words of wisdom. According to him, women who have a higher paying job or education are too stubborn and hard-headed that she won't listen to the man. Story 6. Me, married with the same person for 15 years, telling my sister to be straightforward with a guy who is interested in her. Her single friend telling her, no, screw that, play mind games. Me in my head, that's why you're single. Story 7. The whole idea of the one. Nothing ends more relationships than this notion of whether or not they found the one. Have an argument, you start being paranoid that they aren't the one. Have a small personality clash, start being paranoid they aren't the one. Have different dreams or goals, wonder if they're the one. Have different hobbies, wonder if they are the one. I've seen so many relationships crumble because people are so damn quick to chalk up their partner as the wrong one as opposed to trying to work through problems like an adult. Story 8. If you both love each other, it'll be okay in the end. No, it won't. Love is not enough. Love can come and go. You have to put in a real mental and emotional effort. You need to make sacrifices. You need to choose to be there for that person even if you're mad at them or worse, do not really feel the love for them at the moment. Nothing feels more amazing than to love and to be loved, but a long-term relationship needs more than that. That's why I believe teamwork and actual commitment is crucial, because the honeymoon phase will end. Doesn't mean there won't be any love, on the contrary, but it takes hard work and a real commitment from both. At least this is my opinion. Story 9. I don't know if this is advice so much as I think it's a bad relationship mentality. If you tell me something, you're telling my partner too, or you have to tell me I'm your partner. I don't enter a relationship and suddenly all my family and friends' secrets are void from being secret. I'm still an individual person that my loved ones can confide in without me immediately disseminating that info to a partner. If I wanted to tell my friends' partner a secret, I would tell them myself. It is not my friend's decision to choose who can be trusted with my confidence. If a friend started immediately sharing my stuff with their partner, I would immediately stop sharing anything meaningful with that friend. My friend shouldn't have to ask me to keep something from my partner. I assume that's presumed when they ask me to keep something to myself. Story 10. I married a First Nations woman. I'm a white man. The worst advice I ever got was, be careful of their culture and practices. It could taint you. I was 20 when I got that piece of crap from my then pastor. Caused me to be apprehensive of such a wonderful, diverse culture, and I missed out on a lot for a while. Embrace diversity. You experience so much more in life. Those who are part of those different groups enjoy you so much more. Story 11. I've heard that cheating once a month is still 12 divided by 365 equals 0.03, meaning you're 96% loyal, which is still an A. What a schmuck. Someone else was comparing some sort of lock and key system to why men who have intimacy with a lot of women are legends, but women who have intimacy with a lot of men are witches. Their logic was that a key that can open many locks is a useful key, whereas a lock that can be opened by many keys is a bad lock. Story 12. Not sure if this counts as relationship advice, but when I was on my last cruise, 19 at the time, I was told by a random lady to get myself a vacation girl. I told her I had a girlfriend and she told me, "What are you being loyal for? You're young. Go live life." Story 13. I once saw a post that analyzed how your boyfriend squeezes toothpaste and what red flags are probably behind it. For example, if he squeezes the middle of the tube, he's probably impatient and selfish. I don't remember what they all said, but the part that messed me up was that there was no squeeze method on there that didn't indicate a red flag. As a man, you are a piece of crap no matter how you squeeze the tube. Story 14. The only way your relationship will work is if you both have a hardcore drinking problem. Spend every extra penny you have on booze and neither of you tells the other they've had enough to drink. I kid you not. This was actual word-for-word advice my recovering husband and I got from an aunt and uncle when we moved where we live now in January 2020. We both refused to drink with them. Their relationship was so great because this was the basis of their relationship. They started slandering our names with false lies when we said that's not how me and my husband were going to live our marriage. We haven't talked to them or 95% of my paternal family. They got divorced the day before 2021 Thanksgiving and now fight for custody and to make ends meet. How's your advice working out for you now? Story 15. From my mother. There's no point in both of you being angry at the same time, so if your significant other is angry, be calm. I'm normally a patient person and took this advice to heart. My fiancé is definitely more of a hothead. This advice led me to be shutting down and staying quiet when he would be having a verbal rage fit and practically begging me to communicate with him. Anytime I was angry, I ended up bottling in most of it when I would begin to rage because my fiancé would respond to my rage with his rage, in turn leading him to continue to rage while I would just kind of scowl and remain quiet. I wasn't happy. He wasn't happy, and it caused many communication problems with us. Luckily, therapy has helped us tremendously. It is also through therapy that I've found that a lot of the other advice from my mother has been less than stellar or just outright wrong. Story 16. My sister gave the worst advice about relationships, but the worst she has ever gave me was, just assume your man can't do anything, but give him tasks to make him feel special. She then went into great detail about how she has her fiancé write the grocery list and throws it away. This is the same girl that told me that men like a little teeth during, I feel so bad for her fiancé. Story 17. There's plenty, though much of it has already been said here. Instead, I'll contribute to this. Essentially, a friend's noting that men always have a super high and giving me tips on how to change myself if I felt the intimacy was declining. Guys, just talk with your partner. I swear it's so much easier than all these mental gymnastics and centering the problem on yourself, and probably your own unrelated insecurities, even if it takes time and multiple conversations. Research ways to improve your communication first, not a million other things that might not even be the issue at hand. That just builds resentment in your end in the long run anyway. Story 18. I knew that I didn't want anything serious with a guy that I was hanging out with for a little while, and I told him that very clearly from the beginning. My ex-friend, who cannot be alone, so ends up dating really horrible people, told me that I should just give him a chance. Like me knowing very clearly that we were not compatible, didn't vibe with her. Just accept everything wrong so you don't have to be alone mentality. She was always making comments about trying to find me a boyfriend, or if I spoke with a dude just in passing, she was always trying to set me up because apparently it's better to be miserable and in a relationship than being content and alone. Story 19. Happy wife, happy life. It's probably the worst I've heard. The idea that I have to make sure she's happy or it won't be is insane. That's codependency, not a relationship. Each person's happiness is their own responsibility. If she or he is unhappy, she or he needs to change something. It's not your partner's job to figure out how to make you happy, and your partner's happiness shouldn't depend on yours. Story 20. Literally any advice on how to move past a partner being unfaithful while still staying in the relationship. Sorry, but no. Can't move past that, and I'm convinced the people that say they do are lying to everyone, including themselves. I'm not trying to be harsh. It's just stupid to say with someone who's unfaithful and it's not worth working out. Plenty of fish in the sea, and in the age of social media, we have access to more people than ever before. You'll find someone else. Anyone I know who's tried to stay with someone unfaithful has just wound up more hurt. It is incredibly rare that someone cheats and never cheats again. If you allow it and try to move past it, it gets easier for them every time. The trust never comes back completely and they never stay fully faithful. Doesn't matter how hard you try to be good enough for them or forgive them. The relationship is a goner and you're just dragging it out and causing unnecessary pain trying to make it work. Story 21. Advice or attitudes. Number 1, having a baby so he'll stay with me. More likely to make him run far away. If your relationship has problems, Introducing a baby will not help. Number 2, marrying someone because of pregnancy. Having intimacy does not mean you should have a relationship, especially if there will now be a child coming into the picture. Number 3, staying together for the kids. You think the kids don't sense one or both parents are unhappy? Divorce can be traumatic, but at least you're moving forward. Number 4, if you have nothing to hide, then I can check your phone. No. If you don't trust me, why are you with me? And even if I have nothing to hide, I don't think my friends would want you to see our private messages. Different from accessing a partner's phone to be able to listen to music, Google something, etc. Story 22. Make a list of qualities you want in a partner. Seen this a few times. Yeah, it's good to have things you want in a partner, but don't have a detailed list. The more detailed you get, the less the chance of finding that person and the more your chance of being disappointed and unhappy. You're never going to meet a 6'2", blonde, blue-eyed air traffic controller that has a good relationship with his mom, plays sports, works out, doesn't drink but still likes to go out, doesn't smoke, drives a red Jeep, has a Pomeranian, and coaches kids hockey. Oh, and his name can't start with a J. Story 23. I knew a girl in high school whose father played football and her mother was a cheerleader. She was an only child, so her father pushed her to be like him, an engineer. She studied all the time. She had a boyfriend and they did homework together. He also wanted her to date a guy like him. She said, I have a boyfriend who doesn't pressure me for intimacy and is good at schoolwork. A football player isn't it. Her mother said, a football player will make her popular and she can always get a termination if she has to. She ended up breaking all ties with her mother. The dad wanted a mini-me engineer. The mom wanted a daughter who peaked in high school. The daughter just wanted a boyfriend who wasn't a walking stereotype. And speaking of things you might want to keep private, every day, companies, advertisers, and hackers make billions off people's personal data. And most people, they don't even realize it's happening. But here's the thing. Protecting yourself online doesn't have to be expensive. For less than the price of a fancy coffee, you could get NordVPN and secure your entire digital life. Military-grade encryption keeps your data private. Fast servers let you browse, stream, and game without slowdowns, and no one, not your ISP, not advertisers, not hackers, can track what you do online. Think about it. A hacker only needs one stolen password to drain your bank account, steal your identity, or sell your data on the dark web. That's a very expensive mistake, and one that could have been avoided with a VPN that costs a few bucks a month. Online security shouldn't be a luxury. It should be standard. Protect your data, protect your privacy, and do it for less than your cup of coffee.
You'll be supporting the channel, and you'll get 70% off plus 6 months free by using our link.
Now back to the stories. Story 24. You'll just know when you've found the one. Bub, I've been looking for over 7 years and I'm still not sure I'm looking in the right place. Or era. Or universe at this point. I honestly don't think there really is such a thing as the one except for movies and MacGuffins. It's more accurate to look for closest fit, if you ask me, and even that's more of a guessing game than a two-piece puzzle. It's even harder online, when anyone can be anything, anytime. And don't get me started in the puppy love we call high school romance. There aren't enough bones in my body to count the number of times I checked up on a crush to find they were with someone else, or asked a friend about their boyfriend or girlfriend, etc., only to hear that they had broken up literally an hour ago. Heck, I've actually been in the same room as a breakup. Not a bad breakup, although even I was a bit bummed about it. I only ever saw one couple from high school get married and I haven't heard from them since. Most of the happy couples I've met were already out of that prison of existential dread in a fresh coat of paint. In short, love isn't something you just walk right into or know on sight, but it's not impossible to find either. For most people, I do know some outliers who just can't or actually have found their boo with no trouble. Love rarely comes early, so if you don't find your proverbial other half before you graduate school, don't cry about it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try looking or find someone to share memories with while you're looking for that missing piece. Just be careful who you give your love, care, and memories to. They might ruin everything. I myself haven't gone through that, but I do have friends who have. And for crying out loud, if you're going to find someone, don't wait for them to come to you. Go out and socialize. Go looking for them. Don't force anything, and don't let someone force it on you, but have yourself some fun. Find friends and go places. Otherwise, you'll end up like me, alone for 7 years with the social graces of a walrus and the joy of a sea slug, wondering how I found someone willing to put up with my calamitous antisocial depression cycle I call a life. Story 25. Just get rid of them. Just move on. They're not worth it. It's such a popular opinion to sit on your haunches and let others dictate what's right or wrong with your relationships. If you've got a decent partner and things aren't working, and you're able to effectively communicate, sometimes it really is just a matter of putting in the effort. The internet is a place where you're going to find people who've been done wrong and are still hurting for it, and are resentful towards past relationships that haven't worked out. In the real world, relationships take constant effort. You shouldn't be so quick to dismiss people over things because it's easy to walk away. Not directed at those who've actually had really awful partners or cruel relationships. I understand there is a line that ought to be drawn. Story 26. Everyone deserves a second chance. People change. The bad advice is more from the person giving the advice, knowing nothing about the other person or the relationship and less about the principle. Some people change. Sometimes it's good to give someone a second chance, but it's really terrible to say this to someone who's been mistreated in a relationship. It's stupid to be nice and care for someone's feelings when it will not change them and it will hurt you. Story 27. Had a guy that liked me. I rejected him because he lived in another state as me and I've never had a boyfriend before. I also only liked him as a friend. I stopped talking to him for about a year, and during that time I told a couple of my guy friends about him. When I said that I rejected him and ghosted him, they said I was a witch and completely ripped his heart out. I asked what I should have done, and one of them said I should have faked my feelings and dated him. I was so stupid I honestly considered taking that advice, but one of my friends who had been in a couple of relationships said that what they said was the worst relationship advice she had ever heard. Story 28. I was in a Christian youth group very briefly as a teenager. One of the reasons I was only there briefly was the youth pastor told a young person that her aunt can't leave her cruel husband. He said they were Christian, in a Christian marriage, and it would be a sin for her to leave. Impressed on the fact this was mistreatment, he doubled down and said the woman should stay with a friend and pray until the husband realized the error of his ways. Freaking BS. Still see the guy around town every now and then. What a piece of crap. Story 29. Save yourself for the right one. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's have a bunch of people with zero experience in relationships or intimacy marry each other on the spot so they can finally get to fooling around just to end up having a baby and realizing that not only do they not fit together, but now they also have a child way too early and can't get out of this anymore while the best years of their lives pass them by without waving. Outside of a couple rare cases where the first one you get is the ideal match, everyone needs to go through a couple of crappy relationships to learn what they want and what they don't want. Story 30. Just walk away. You can't just walk away from someone you've tried to commit to, especially when both of you will always feel attracted to and have a good understanding of each other. She broke my freaking heart and I wasn't sure if I could love someone else. We had so many emotional and physical connections with each other. When the time came, I was completely devastated. I was going out of my mind mentally over what she did. Just know I exhausted every possible idea I could think of, but for my own sanity, I had to force myself to let you go. It's mentally scarring and I still think about her. If you see this, Allie, you were my treasure, but what you did was unforgivable. I'm sorry, but I'm not now. Story 31. It doesn't matter if you don't love each other. That's not a reason to split up. I don't think it's normal for married people to kiss. That's a dating thing or just during intimacy. Both said to me by my ex-husband. For context, we were both young, late 20s and no kids, so no real impediment to splitting up if we were unhappy. We were. His priority was other people's opinions and the benefits of dual income, which I was supposed to contribute a lot to, but somehow without overshadowing him or getting promoted when he didn't. Not our happiness. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 32. Play hard to get. No, don't do this. If you know someone likes you and the feeling is mutual, don't make them work hard for your attention. It makes you look as if you're not interested. There's so many people in this world. They will find someone else that welcomes them with open arms. Just give them your attention as long as they deserve it. Loving someone and sharing your life with them comes with enough complications. Don't make it difficult from the get-go. Just love and be loved. Story 33. Back when I was in my old high school, a kid who had a crush on me went asking the school's, quote, F-boy for advice after I had rejected him multiple times. The advice was literally to stalk me to the point where I started liking him because some girls are attracted to creepy guys. I couldn't arrive at school or leave it without him following me and trapping me into corners to try and seduce me. I was terrified of the guy. I didn't know who to talk to because his mom was a teacher at the school, so I'd end up getting in trouble if I told anyone. I ended up having to ask a guy friend of mine to practically be my personal bodyguard. He'd pester me after school, asking what my friend was to me and if we were dating. Lockdown hit a month later and I never went back to that school. I saw the guy a couple months ago when I went to get immunized. He, of course, cried when he got his. I still wonder how the heck I was so scared of him to this day. He took persistence as key a little too literally. Like legally restraining order, literally. Story 34. Classmate just said to me, if you want girls, then invite them on a date. Ask her what she does, kiss them. Sure thing. But he's also the kind of guy who barely knows any English and speaks like he knows how the world works. And how the heck am I going to learn anything from this advice? It does not teach me how to do it, it just says to do it. As a boy with mental issues, I have no idea how. I find it hard initiating conversations with someone else who isn't from my family. Story 35. My dad always encouraged us to not go to bed angry and aim to resolve any arguments or differences before going to sleep. Even though I understand that the advice always came from a good place, I'm now of the belief that sometimes you do just need to sleep it off and revisit the discussion the next day. If you force it, you may say something to the other person that you will regret, or you may just not have the right words to articulate your opinion because you're coming from a place of pure anger or sadness. Sometimes, it's best to just revisit the issue later. Story 36. When I was 22 years old, I was trying to decide between two guys. My ex-fiancé, who had returned to town, and the person I'd met that summer who was kind, loyal, but a bit passive or less exciting company. Both handsome, hardworking, honest, both good people. My boss and mentor told me that he didn't think either of them were enough for me, and that I shouldn't date either of them. I've now been married to Mr. Less Exciting for 36 years. Was he always enough for me? No, but that's not what a spouse is for, or what any other person is for. To fulfill your every need at every waking minute. I've seen so many marriages fail from such absurd, unfair expectations, and so much love abandoned by folks with fairy tale notions like that. The older my husband and I get, the more we appreciate each other and the love we have. Story 37. When I was struggling with my relationship with my kid's dad, I invited his mom over to talk about it. I explained how I was struggling being left to do all the housework, childcare, dog care, and also work 32 hours a week without his help because he'd get angry and aggressive that the house was getting messy. He also had hoarding issues, but let's not go there. Her advice? When I got married, I ran into the same problem. Until I just learned to accept that I'd be doing all the cooking and cleaning. That's what you need to do, for the sake of a quiet life. No thank you. Story 38. I got some bad relationship advice from a friend of mine. I was casually dating and I'd met the woman who would one day be my wife. She was my favorite, and I was still going on dates with other women, and she knew I was still going on dates with other women. After a month of us dating, my best friend found out about this, and he was all like, "You need to either commit to her or leave her." This was really bad advice. I wasn't sure if I was ready to commit to her yet. I wouldn't know that for about 2 more months. It is okay to date around a bit, just so long as everyone involved is informed. You don't have to be exclusive to someone just because you went on a couple dates with them. Story 39. So for context, I've never been in a relationship, but I was talking to someone because I was worried it might seem like a red flag to people. They told me, just walk right to a guy you like and tell him, "Hi, I've never had a relationship before." No context, just that. She was convinced that telling someone I've never met that I've never had a relationship would immediately make him more interested, and we'd be making out in the next few minutes. Story 40. The worst relationship advice I ever got was from my father, who told me that I should always submit to my future non-existent husband. Let the husband make all the household decisions, and if I didn't give my imaginary future husband intimacy whenever he wanted, even if I was sick or if I didn't want to, then I shouldn't be surprised if I got cheated on. It was so out of left field. Completely unprompted, and on top of that, not how I was raised at all. I felt so betrayed that he would want that kind of life for his child. Story 41. Well, no one told me this, but when me and one of my exes were still dating, we were having a really hard time. We were both very toxic to each other. I was a bit more toxic than him, though, not gonna lie. It was just a massive pushover, and it took advantage of that a lot. I was still in high school and just recently kicked out of my mother's house for being in a relationship. I really liked him and how he treated me sometimes, and I was so scared I wouldn't find someone to love me like that again that we got engaged. I thought getting married would fix our problems, especially since everyone in my family loved him so much I was scared to lose him and move on with my life. My grandma would tell me to hold on to him tight because I won't find another man as loving as him. Well, I did, and sure as heck the relationship fell apart. I ended up breaking up with him because I knew how toxic I was being to him and he deserved a better woman. We parted ways, but we talked occasionally. He's much happier now. And so am I. Never try to marry someone because you think you're not worthy of being loved by another person, especially if you know the relationship isn't healthy. Story 42. Everyone ends up in relationships. You just have to wait to find your soulmate. There are a plethora of reasons why some people don't want to be in a relationship. Maybe they're arrow ace, maybe they had a breakup once and were so devastated they don't want to put themselves at risk of going through this experience again. Maybe they had a major negative experience in their previous relationship and want to stay back from them. Maybe they just like being lonely. My reason is that I'm scared that I would be somehow a terrible partner, and I don't think I'm up to that responsibility, let alone having a child. Story 43. My mother used to preach about how you have to know how to cook and clean to get a nice husband. I never believed this. Once I got a boyfriend who I genuinely love and wanted to spend my life with, My mother continued to preach more and bring me down about it. She even asked him, thinking he would agree with her, which, of course, he didn't. Then he went on to how I looked. She would comment on my look and say if I don't get cleaned up, my boyfriend would leave me. This didn't stop until my boyfriend proposed to me. He said that he loves me for who I am and not what I look like. I recently gave birth to our first child, and I can say that I'm proud of the body I have now. Story 44. Mother told me, women must always sacrifice for a marriage to work. And I honestly hate that advice so much. Is marriage one-sided? Why does the woman have to do everything? Mom's always the one cooking, cleaning, and teaching or raising the kids. She's basically a single parent in my eyes. Dad just brings in the money. I learned pretty quickly that if I settle for a partner the traditional way, there's good chances I'd be put into my mother's place, and honestly, to heck with that. I'm not going to raise a man-child. I'm not going to do everything by myself and sacrifice going out, learning however much I want unless I decide not to. My favorite foods, my entire life to one man I didn't even choose. Marriage should be working together. Marriage is not to dump everything on one person and live free. Marriage is a team effort. Same goes for the reverse, by the way. A man should not be doing everything in the marriage either. Story 5. I used to be into the alpha male mindset and remember reading about getting a girl's number. Demand it. Never say things like, could I get your number, or would you want to exchange numbers? Demand it from her. I like you, give me your number, or you're going to give me your number. Crap never worked and I ruined a lot of chances. Story 46. I've been told that you need to learn to love yourself before you can love someone else. It's total BS. I always hated myself. I would constantly wonder what the point in going on with life was. That changed the moment I met my partner. Well, I'm still far from loving myself. I love her with every fiber of my being, and she has helped me to see that I'm not as worthless as I've always believed. I guess my point is that you don't need to have everything figured out before a relationship. Sometimes the only way you can grow is with a bit of assistance. Story 47. Whenever something particularly difficult is happening to you, any advice to the effect of, if I were you and this situation happened to me, I would blank, is going to be terrible advice. Number 1, they have no idea what they would do. Did you know what you would do before this happened? Probably not. So why would they? Number 2, they don't have your feelings and they don't have to live with the repercussions. If someone is going through something difficult, don't offer advice. And if they ask for advice, offer ways to help them care for themselves, not a decision they should make. If something dangerous is going on, get professional help. Story 48. My ex-boyfriend of 3 years was closeted, and he basically used me as a hey, I'm straight shield from the beginning. When I found out what he was doing with his best friend at the time, I confided with my then best friend about it and asked what I should do. She told me, he'll come to his senses. Just give him more time and he'll be straight. He just doesn't see yet because he's all confused. I know we were 16 and in high school at the time, but that was a really piece of crap advice. Story 49. Having full access to each other's electronics for the purpose of openly snooping at each other builds trust. Willfully invading one's privacy for the sake of soothing your own insecurities, whether the invasion is consensual or not, is very unhealthy, in my opinion. Allowing one to be themselves, with their personal boundaries and privacy intact, builds trust. What they do with that freedom determines whether they're trustworthy or not. I've known several such relationships where checking each other's combos and such after a day at work was not only accepted, but expected. Each of those relationships also involved several forms of non-physical cruelty, such as gaslighting, isolation tactics, and simply reserving their indiscretions for the physical realm. Story 50. That you have to accept if the other side doesn't want to have intimacy. I mean, if the other side just tells you day after day for weeks that she has a headache, is tired, and doesn't have a mood, then you have the absolute right to be angry. It's such a situation after the first kid was born for many months. If I didn't state my opinion and we didn't work together, I would be miserable and make the other side miserable. Never accept something that will make you unhappy. You can, for some time. You can compromise, but if something will make your life go into the wrong direction, try hard to change it. Don't accept it. Story 51. For the love of God, don't stick together for your kids. My mom wanted me to stay with my ex-wife for our kids, and at the end said it's time for you two to get a divorce. It was a nasty divorce for no reason besides trying to make my life miserable or broke, and my ex tried making me out to be a terrible person. But it didn't work how she wanted. It's now a hostile co-parenting situation where she doesn't want me or my fiancé in my kids' lives. But my life is better not having constant toxicity. My kids are probably better for it. Story 52. It wasn't really advice, but there's this Avril Lavigne song I've heard since I was a kid that says, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to cry in front of you. Even the first time I heard it as a kid, I thought, you should probably tell your partner why you feel sad. It's a bit concerning because other kids or young adults probably won't take that into consideration and be influenced by a celebrity. And that's probably the reason Avril is now going into her third marriage. Story 53. Play hard to get. From my mom. Lol. Like, no. Especially if you're in a relationship with someone, you're not going to get them to love you more by playing hard to get or maintaining an emotional distance from them under the guise of being coy. You're just going to make them wonder what they can do to help mend that barrier, and for literally no reason. Even if you're just casually dating, it's going to be really hard to make and maintain healthy connections with people using that methodology. Story 54. If they won't let you look at their phone, they're cheating on you. What? What idiot came up with this one? Maybe they grow up with no sense of privacy and their phone is the most private thing they own. Maybe they're planning a surprise. Maybe they're trying to deal with a problem without worrying you. There are a million other reasons, including they don't want to add to your stress or workload. They don't want to make you worry. They're doing something you may not approve of. They may be afraid you'll overreact. They don't want you to be jealous or misunderstand something. They don't want to force you to pick sides. Again, there are so many reasons they may not want you to look at their phone, including showing respect and trust. Story 55. If a man makes you cry, he's not the one for you. I get where this person was going, but I just hate advice that makes any emotional expression into a negative thing. Crying is so healthy, and that advice could make someone in denial about a relationship suppress their tears. It gives off the impression that we shouldn't cry and it's shameful to cry. I also just cry during every passionate conversation I have because I'm emotional. So if I followed that advice and removed everyone in my life who has made me cry, I would be a very lonely person. Lol. Story 56. You'll find the right one. There is no right one. We're all messy, awful human beings. The only baseline criteria you need is kindness, a general sense that you get along, and a genuine willingness to work together and take care of each other. Then you can build a wonderful relationship. It has nothing to do with finding some extra special, super magical unicorn person. Just any decent person will do. They become the one through the time and investment you both put into each other. Story 57. I've seen lots of people from third countries getting married for the visa. Then months later, they found out their partner is cruel, then they'll ask for advice online on what to do. The people commenting that she should stay despite all because at least she's in a first world country and given enough time, you can get permanent residency. It is beyond me. That is if she's still alive after all that BS. And in my country, you need to stay for 10 years before you can apply for permanent residence. I've heard people getting accepted even with just 5. Story 58. Controversial opinion, but the worst advice regarding relationships quite a lot is, if it isn't working, leave. This is not unsound advice, to be sure. If a relationship has tried every avenue available and you guys still can't make the situation work, then you have to cut your losses and get out for your own sake. That said, I feel like most of the time I hear this advice, it's always extremely premature. Very rarely does this phrase come from anyone who knows the full extent of the relationship, or the full story of what has been done or is being done. But that little bit of premature advice can be extremely unhelpful in actually getting to the root of a problem and saving that relationship. The scale of what you're willing to put up with is relative, but this is the sort of crap that ends marriages like the plague. It can get the parties involved thinking way too narrowly as though they just have an out if things don't pan out, and from personal experience, that seems to make folks try less to actually work through issues. It leads to very messy breakups and a whole lot of pain that I feel could be avoided in a lot of cases by going down every available road before throwing in the towel. Serious relationships tend to end much more amicable when both parties come to the conclusion they tried their absolute hardest to make it work. Story 59. Relationships take work. Nope. With the right person, things should be effortless and easy. But nowadays, the leeches with all the money need the BS capitalist machine to keep churning, which requires a lot of people working to produce surplus value they can steal. And for that, you need the birth rate to stay as high as possible to keep the wheels turning long term. Thus, we get this notion that you should work to fix a helplessly broken relationship rather than be single. Story 60. I got this advice growing up from female members of my family. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So I was told to be a good cook to keep my husband happy. Another one I got from my mother-in-law. The woman should be the caretaker in the house, like house chores, keeping the house clean and organized, etc. Casual one I kept hearing all through my 20s. If you're destined to be with someone, then that will be only with a soulmate. After I met my husband, I learned that soulmates are chosen. Destiny is decided by us to commit to a relationship and live with them through thick and thin. All the advice was pathetic. Story 61. I watched a video once where this guy was trying to teach people how to hack breakups. Basically, he said where a girl breaks up with you, just say okay, because they'll see you're not affected and then instantly want you back. I doubt that would actually work in most scenarios, and my faith in this guy was gone immediately after seeing the rest of the videos on his channel. He's one of those self-proclaimed alpha males who make relationship videos about women despite sounding like he's never talked to one. Story 62. If he can't handle you at your worst, he doesn't deserve you at your best. This advice did the rounds on Facebook for ages. Attributed to Monroe, but who knows? I think it's terrible advice. If I'm giving someone I love my worst, then I'm either a sociopath or I don't really love them. Whether or not they deserve my best isn't the point. Do they deserve my worst? Probably not. And if they do, they're probably a terrible person too. Story 63. Everyone at my wedding told me to learn the phrases, "Yes, dear, you're right." Everyone. My wife and I don't play that. We're incredibly open and honest with each other. If I think she's wrong, I tell her. If she thinks I'm wrong, she tells me. Then we talk about it and work through things together. Don't patronize your partner by letting them win. Be real, be honest, be open, and you'll be better off for it. Story 64. Whenever someone outside, usually a friend with good intentions, tells someone in a couple they should take a break in the relationship, I have not seen one successful relationship survive out of a break. The worst part is you Google it and it's always pages saying why it's good. Every stinking time I've seen people do it, it ruins the relationship. Don't do it. Persevere and be there for each other. Don't run away. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.